All right, guys. I'm super excited about this message. I have been for a moment now. The name of this sermon is going to be called Caesar the Opportunist. Caesar the Opportunist. Now, some of you are probably thinking, okay, I already know what this sermon is going to be about. It's going to be about Caesar, probably King Caesar from the Bible. No, that's not what it's about. It's not about what you probably think it's about. Actually, this sermon is going to be about Judas, and more specifically, what I want to say is for whoever this sermon may be for, maybe you feel almost like you have a Judas in your life. And what I mean is this: maybe you feel like there's somebody in your life that you're suspicious of because you see patterns playing out with them and you think they may be someone who is a betrayer, a backstabber. In other words, you think that they are someone who they're just pretending to really like you, pretending to care about you, but really they have a motive about themselves, and it's almost like they're just trying to find the perfect moments and the perfect opportunities to try to get maybe information out of you to go back and tell someone else. Or they're trying to set you up for something, set you up for a disaster, set you up for an argument, set you up for a failure with someone else. In other words, it's someone who, it's not like they're trying to start trouble with you personally themselves, but it's almost like they're setting you up to have trouble with someone else, which is what Judas did to Jesus. And let me just start out by saying this, and I'll explain in a moment why this is called Caesar the Opportunist. It'll make sense in a moment. But let me say this: this past weekend, if you remember, I did a sermon, and it was called "I'm Not Crazy, I Promise." And I was hitting on some different characters in the Bible, and one of the people that I was talking about was Judas. I kind of used him as an example to just to make some points about some things. But right before I got ready to record the sermon, I was rereading over, the verses I was going to mention in the sermon. And there was one particular verse that when I read it, there was a word that just stood out to me. It was almost like it just jumped off the page at me. And as I just kind of got still and meditated on it for a moment, it was like this whole sermon started coming to me. And I was like, I think this needs to be my next sermon. And so I just started, getting my verses ready, getting my notes ready, studying, getting ready. And yeah, I think this message is going to help somebody. So maybe someone who tunes in to listen to me, whether it be regularly, maybe it be somebody new, I don't know. But I think this sermon is definitely going to help somebody, whoever this may be for. And basically, it's just me giving you some confirmation on your situation and basically just showing you or explaining to you using scripture how to deal with this possible Judas in your life. Now, I'm going to start out here in Matthew. Matter of fact, almost this whole sermon is going to be in Matthew and then an area in Romans, and I'll get this wrapped up. It shouldn't be a very long message. Pretty straight to the point. But go ahead, if you follow along in your Bible, go ahead and head over to Matthew chapter 26, and I'll be starting at verse 14. But to just set the tone, let me just give you some examples. It could be anyone. It could be, I don't know, it could be a friend. It could be someone who is not necessarily considered a friend, someone who's just an associate, somebody you just associate with, somebody you know. So it could be a friend or a relative or a long distance relative. It could be a co-worker. It could be somebody that you go to school with, that you have classes with. I mean, just in any area of your life, someone you're in a relationship with or someone you used to be in a relationship with. I don't know, but there's someone who it's like they have access to you regularly enough that they've been able to get to watch you, been able to get to know you at least to a certain extent. And maybe there are things that they've done or said that have made you suspicious. But as I've said, maybe you've caught a pattern. And what I mean is, maybe to you it seems almost like every time you try to I guess, get comfortable with them or confide in them. Maybe you've told them some secrets or some personal things or whatever. But it seems like anytime things are going good with that person and it seems like they're just being cool, getting to know you, blah, 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 it seems like next thing you know, possibly something you've told them has gotten back to someone else. And it might not be that you've said anything bad, but it's almost like the things that you do or say is held against you even when you're not necessarily doing anything wrong. It's almost like you have enemies, or as I want to put it, people in the background, if you will, who it's like they want to be able to watch you or investigate you or find out enough information about you to try to hold something over your head or to try to twist what you do or say to make it seem like, you mean something bad or to make you out to be the bad guy. But it's almost like you have someone, like I said, close enough to you, maybe not super close, but close enough to you, where it's almost like anytime they can get some information or see you do something or hear you say something, you see a pattern of how it always seems to get back to someone. And for whatever reason, they're mad about something, or it's almost like they do or say something to you that shows you that what you told that Judas or what that Judas saw you do keeps getting back to them, and they're always trying to start some type of trouble with you because of it. Yet the Judas keeps pretending to be your friend and keeps pretending to care and keeps pretending to show all this interest in you, when in reality all they're doing is being a middleman, a monkey in the middle, going back and forth to start stuff, to stir stuff up. Now here's the thing, it may not even be that the Judas has anything against you. It might not be that they're a hater. It might not be that they got something personal against you. But simply put, they are an opportunist. What do I mean? Let's look at this. Let's jump into scripture. Matthew 26, starting at verse 14, it says this: Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priests and said unto them, What will ye give me, and I will deliver him unto you? And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver. Watch this. And from that time he sought opportunity to betray him. So what's happening is Judas is having a conversation with some people who don't like Jesus, who want to see his life end, and he's having a secret meeting with them. Now, Judas, of course, is one of Jesus's 12 disciples. He's one of the 12 people handpicked by Jesus to follow him along and see how he lives and see he gets to see how he ministers to people. He gets to see Jesus, cast demons out of people and heal them from their sicknesses and diseases. Raise the dead back to life. He gets to see him set people free from bondages, addictions, open up blinded eyes, unstop deaf ears, make those that are mute be able to talk again. I mean, he's seen Jesus do all this spectacular stuff, and it's like he's one of his students. He gets to learn directly under Jesus. And so he has this position that a lot of people would love to have. He's in a situation that should be such a blessing to him. I mean, this is a big deal. He's one of Jesus's very own 12 disciples, and Jesus has not done anything wrong to Judas. He hasn't done anything personal to him for Judas to not like him. But simply put, Judas is an opportunist, and we see in that verse where it says he sought opportunity to betray him. And that right there was the verse that when I read it, that word opportunity just stood out to me. And this is why the sermon is called Caesar the Opportunist. What is an opportunist? People will say, well, opportunities are good. Yes, but an opportunist is something in particular. This is what an opportunist is. An opportunist is someone who seeks out opportunities for gain, or to have some type of an advantage over someone else, or to keep an advantage over someone, but they will do it at the cost of their morals or their ethics. In other words, they may have a certain standard that they'll live up to. For example, they may be a Christian and they may have it in their mind, oh, I'm a Christian and I'm going to live this way and I'm going to do the right thing and I'm going to do right by people and blah, blah, blah. But if given the right opportunity, or if they find the right opportunity to have some type of gain or an advantage, they will turn a blind eye to their wrongdoings and go completely against what they say they stand for just to get a little bit of gain. It could be financial gain, which is what Judas did. It could be any type of a gain or some type of advantage over someone, to be able to lord over someone, to be able to look down on someone, being willing to step over people and lie on them and bear false witness against them and plot and scheme against somebody and try to set people up for bad things and bad situations just to be comfortable in a position or move up. Extort someone, blackmail someone, this, that, and the other. And when getting ready for this sermon, the thing that came to my mind was that saying, how does it go? Everyone has a price. You've probably heard that expression before. Everybody has a price. And when someone says that, what they mean is, no matter how good or decent of a person someone is, and no matter how long they may have lived a certain way, if you give them something such as fame or fortune, attention, a spotlight, something that makes them get a little prideful and arrogant and puffed up, something that can make them feel like they're better than someone else, if you just give them the right thing that they're willing to sell out for, they'll do it. That's what they mean when they say everybody has a price. You pay the right price, you can get anybody to do anything. That's what folks believe. That's what a lot of people believe. And so that's pretty much similar to what's happening with Judas. He's an opportunist. He's been taught the right way by Jesus himself, not he's been taught by someone who was taught by someone else, who was taught by someone else, who just so happened to be taught by Jesus. No. He was taught directly from Jesus himself. So he knows right from wrong. He has no reason to have anything against Jesus, yet he still seeks opportunity to betray him, to get whatever he can in return. And he does this because he knows that there are people that are out to get Jesus. So because he has a close connection or a close relationship with someone, and he knows that there are other people who are out to get the person he's close to, he has used that as an opportunity for gain. So now you see what I'm saying. There's a difference between someone who's just a hater, who pretends to be a friend to do you wrong in the long run simply because they don't like you. There's a difference between that and an opportunist, because as crazy and as sad as it sounds, an opportunist may for real actually like you. But at the end of the day, the opportunity for gain or advance is more important to them. Come on. Because of their selfishness. Oh, goodness. I'm helping somebody. So he's been a bit of an opportunist. So why do I call this Caesar the opportunist? Why not call this sermon Judas the opportunist? Well, it's kind of a play on words. And if you listen to me a lot, y'all know I'm big on like puns and, a play on words and stuff like that. I'm big on wordplay. But when you think of Caesar, many times we think of the name Caesar, which is C-A-E-S-A-R. But there's also a word seize, which is S-E-I-Z-E. So to be a Caesar, as in the word Caesar, it simply means someone who will seize the moment. And when people say seize the moment or seize the day, they mean just grab a hold of the moment, or, capture the day, grab a hold of it. In other words, take it for all it's got. Don't take it for granted. Seize the day, seize the opportunity, right? Grab a hold of it. Or like when people say grab life by the horns, right? Seize it, grab it, take it. Don't let it go. Take it for yours. Take it for all you can. Seize it. So you see, it's kind of a play on words here, because Judas seized the opportunity to betray Jesus, and he was helping his enemies seize Jesus. Because remember, when he did lead the people to Jesus, they wanted to grab a hold of him or take Jesus away onto their territory. So he seized the moment to help Jesus' enemies seize him. See what I did there? So Caesar the Opportunist. Now you get it. So just a little play on words there, but let's move on. Now let's keep going. It says this: now the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying unto him, where wilt thou that we prepare for thee to eat the Passover? And he said, go into the city to such a man, and say unto him, the master saith, my time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples. And the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Now when the even was come, he sat down with the 12. And as they did eat, he said, verily I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. And they were exceeding sorrowful, and began every one of them to say unto him, Lord, is it I? So it's saying that Jesus is sitting down with all 12 of his disciples, eating, having a meal, and out of nowhere, Jesus exposes the fact that, hey, I know that one of you is about to get ready to betray me. Now, I just want to point out real quick, first off, that Jesus doesn't say, oh, I'm fixing to stop this before it happens. He doesn't start cussing anybody out. He doesn't get ready to brawl. But he does at least throw it out there that he knows that someone's going to betray him. To me, that says a lot. And we as Christians or followers of Christ, listen, we may be suspicious of people. We may think that someone is trying to set us up, such and such and such. It happens. It's life. Sometimes people do you wrong. But even though he knew what he knew, he still was willing to sit down and have a meal face to face with the one that he knew was about to do him in. Now, I'm not trying to say that you always have to sit down and dine with your enemy, and you know what I mean? I'm not saying that you just have to always let them in and let them close to you when you know they're doing you wrong or about to do you wrong. But what I'm saying is there may be certain situations or times or instances where you may have to get along with someone who you know doesn't mean you well. Again, it doesn't mean you got to be around them all the time. You don't have to be buddy-buddy with them. But there may be times in your life where you have to be around them. Like I said, it could be a family member. Maybe you go to the family reunion and they're there. You don't have to, open up to them and let them know all your business. But while you're there, you can be civil with them. Do you see what I'm saying? If it's somebody at your school, somebody at your workplace, someone where there may be a moment where you have to be around them. These times come, and you have to know how to be civil, but at the same time, it's okay to understand that you don't have to let them run you over. You don't have to open up to them in such a way that you continue to give them more and more and more information, knowing they're just going to use it against you. But you can still be Christ-like to them. And no, that doesn't mean that you're being two-faced or fake. You can know someone doesn't mean you well, but still just give them a smile, say hello, how you doing, and move on. It's called forgiveness. It's called love. It's called kindness and respect. The basics of Christianity. Just saying. But anyway, many of us as Christians have forgotten those little concepts like love and forgiveness and kindness and all that, and loving your neighbor and loving your enemy. But, whatever. That's not the cool way to be. But, even though we're not supposed to be of the world as Christians. But, whatever. What do I know? Anyway, but let's look at this. Verse 22, and they were exceeding sorrowful. Now, let me say this. It doesn't say It doesn't say they were all sad except Judas. It says they were all exceeding sorrowful. But we know how the story plays out. Judas goes ahead and betrays Jesus anyway. So Jesus has admitted that he knows one of them's going to betray him. Yet Judas still goes through the motions of being sad about it, even though he knows in his heart that it's, you know what I mean? He knows he's about to do Jesus in, but even he gon', act all sad with everybody. But anyway, you know how it is, and for whoever this may be for, this is your confirmation. You've been suspicious of this Judas for a while, and the only reason you doubt it is because it's like they're acting, but deep down there's something in you that's letting you know that they're acting. You know what I mean? Like their emotions are all pantomime, like they're miming their emotions, almost like they're not real. It's kind of like an act, almost like they're acting like they're concerned and they're acting like they care, but it's almost like you kind of got that feeling that they're just kind of like putting on that act. Okay. So, moving on, verse 23, and he answered and said, he that dippeth his hand with me in the dish, the same shall betray me. The Son of Man goeth as it is written of him, but woe unto that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It had been good for that man if he had not been born. Then Judas, which betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? Then he said unto him, Thou hast said. So Judas even goes out of his way to be like, is it me? Lord, is it me? So again, he's still going through the motions. He's still acting it out. But Jesus is just like, well, you said it, you're pretty much telling on yourself right now. And that's what your Judases will do. They won't flat out tell on themselves, but they may do things, or rather say things that almost give it away if you just pay attention, almost like reading between the lines. Let's move on. Skip down to verse 36. It says this: Then cometh Jesus with them unto a place called Gethsemane, and said unto the disciples, Sit ye here while I go and pray yonder. Let me just say this right here. Jesus went out. He had some of his disciples with him, and he goes to go pray. Now, this is a key thing here for whoever this may be for. It's important for you to pray on it. Pray and ask God to reveal something to you, to give you clarity on the situation, some type of vivid detail on what's really going on behind the scenes, because you could be wrong about it. You could be right about it. But then here's also this. You may be right about your suspicions, but there may be even more to it than you think. For example, you may think, okay, this Judas is going back and telling so-and-so and so, blah, blah, blah. But what if that's not the only person they're telling stuff to? What if they're telling somebody and then that person's going back and tells them? You know what I mean? There's probably more to it. And so I would say that just pray that he would give you clarity, but also pray that God would direct your paths to basically act the right way, to go about it the right way. If you have to talk to someone or have to confront the person or whatever, that he gives you the right words to say, that you're kind, that you're calm, that you're patient, that you're not fisting to run up on somebody, cussing them out, that you don't get mad and try to do a drive-by. And I'm just joking, but you know what I mean, that you handle it like an adult, like a very Christ-like adult when the situation comes. And that's what Jesus was wanting them to do. He knew that it was almost time for him to be betrayed, but he wanted him and his disciples to go and to pray for when that hour came, so that they would act accordingly to what was about to get ready to happen. Because as soon as Judas would betray Jesus and his enemies would take him away to be tortured and then put on the cross to be tortured some more, he knew it was important to pray so that he would be ready to be prepared for what was to come, so that he didn't get mad and blow up, so that he wouldn't change his mind, about being put on the cross and done wrong by everybody. He wanted to be in the right mindset for when this moment came, so that he could do the will of the Father. See where I'm going? So prayer. But now the next verse says this: And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to be sorrowful and very heavy. So even though he took some disciples with him, he had some stay behind and pray, but then he took a few with them to move forward further to pray more so. So, my point that I want to get at is this. I know sometimes that when things go kind of wrong in our lives, kind of haywire, a lot of times we want someone to talk to vent to. Maybe we want to get someone else's perspective on a situation. Like maybe you want to sit down and talk to someone and say, okay, I've got this issue with this person. I think they've got something out against me. I think they're like being a Judas, da 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 da. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Sometimes we like that human opinion. You know what I mean? Someone that's flesh and blood just like us, who thinks like us, who, you know what I mean? We know we're going to get that direct answer back versus, being patient and waiting on God. That's just how we are as human, that we just get in the flesh. That's just how we are. We're just human nature. But here's the reality of it. The reality of it is not every problem you have is meant to be shared with everybody. And especially if you're someone who has a lot of friends, maybe your issue is not something that's meant to be shared with every single one of your friends. There may be times when you have to keep things to yourself, or there may be people to share and confide things with, but maybe you should only have a very, very few, very limited amount of folks that you would even bother sharing things with. You see what I'm saying? Maybe someone close to you that you know isn't just gonna go and be a middleman and run and tell things because they're an opportunist. Sometimes some things you just can't share with everybody. Even moments of, like we see with Jesus praying, sometimes you just got to break away from the crowd. So we see Jesus having some people stay where they're at, but then taking a few with him and saying, okay, you few follow me, let's go a little bit further. In other words, the more of an intimate moment he's having on his way to speak with God, he has less and less people coming with him. Earlier in the gospel, he's surrounded by crowds of people thronging him, wanting his attention, wanting to be touched by Jesus. So he gets away from the crowd and he's just with his disciples. And now he's only with just a few of the people, a few disciples instead of all 12. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like he separates a little bit more and a little bit more. And even then, when he has the few, he still walks a little bit further up and then gets down and prays, praying for the way out, but then saying, however, God, if this be your will, Lord, remove this cup from me, but if it be your will, let your will be done. Sometimes you just got to kind of get alone and seek God. So just throwing that out there. Moving on to, let's see, verse 46. Skip down to that. It says this, Jesus speaking, rise, let us be going. Behold, it is at hand that doth betray me. He is at hand that doth betray me. So now Jesus, after them praying, Jesus is saying, okay, now I know that the one who's going to betray me is on his way. Verse 47, and while he yet spake, lo, Judas, one of the 12, came. The funny thing is, this right here kind of reminds me of the saying, speaking of the devil. Like when you and another person, y'all are talking, and then y'all mention somebody, and next thing you know, that very person y'all were talking about shows up out of nowhere, and then you go, well, speaking of the devil, right? That's what happened here. Jesus is talking, he's like, the one that's going to betray me is coming, he's on his way, and then it says, and lo, here comes Judas, speaking of the devil, but literally, right, because it was the devil that had possessed Jesus that entered into Judas, as the word says, to use Judas as his vessel to do the will of the enemy, which is funny because Jesus was just praying for God's will to be done. So Jesus is the Father's vessel, God's vessel to do his will, and Judas was being used as a vessel for Satan to enter into him to do the will of the enemy. So kind of played out, kind of interesting there. But it says this right here. Again, and while he yet spake, lo, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a great multitude with swords and staves from the chief priests and elders of the people. So Judas comes on the scene, And right behind him is a trail of people that have all these weapons to get ready to grab a hold of Jesus. It says this, now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he. Hold him fast. And forthwith he came to Jesus and said, hail, master, and kissed him. Now, isn't that something? Judas had given these people, Jesus' enemies, a signal prior to them walking up on Jesus. When they were in private, he had given them a signal. He said, the one that I go up to and embrace and kiss, that's the one right there. That's the one to grab. In other words, the one that I go out of my way to show such respect and kindness and support to. Oh, goodness. The thing, listen, I'll put it to you this way. Whoever this may be for, it's almost like you got your suspicions, you've seen the patterns, but the only reason you kind of have that doubt is only because it seems like your Judas or Judases keep getting nicer, or pretend to be nicer and pretend to be sweeter and pretend to really care about certain conversations and really showing some support, really showing you some help, really acting like they're helping and assisting you, but really they're just doing it to get closer to you so they can observe you more. Notice how right at the moment that Jesus is finally about to be captured, that's when Judas was the sweetest. Okay, that's deep, but that's rough right there. That's reality. Verse 50, and Jesus said unto him, friend. I love how Jesus knows what's going down. But Jesus starts out with friend. Not you MFing so-and-so and so-and-so. He didn't call Judas all out of his name. He didn't go, see, I knew it. I said when we were eating at the table that you were the one that was going. He said, friend, wherefore art thou come? You know, as Shakespeare would say, wherefore art thou come? You know what I mean? It's King James Version, so it's all over dramatic, old English and everything. But you get my point. Friend, where art thou come from? You know, he called him his friend. Even right in the middle of him doing him wrong, leading his enemies to him, friend, what's this about? Where'd you come from? What do you think you're doing? And it almost kind of takes me back to that moment in Genesis when Adam and Eve sinned against God and they hid, and God comes on the scene and he's saying, where are you? Adam, where are you? Why are you hiding? You know, he sinned, or Adam and Eve, they sinned against God, but in the middle of their sin, God comes on the scene questioning them, why'd you do this? What's going on? He wasn't yelling, screaming, cussing them out. He's just, what's going on here? All calm. That's what Jesus does. Right in the middle of Judas doing him wrong, one of his own sinning against him, and Jesus is like, what is this? Where are you? Where'd you come from? Like when God was like, where are you? Where are you hiding? You know what I mean? You know, showing such grace at a time like that. That's crazy. That's our Savior, though. That's something right there. But I just wanted to point that out. And Jesus said unto him, friend, wherefore art thou come? Then came they and laid hands on Jesus and took him. And behold, one of them which were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck a servant of the high priest and smote off his ear. Then said Jesus unto him, put up again thy sword into his place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. So Jesus, this is what happens. The people are coming up to grab a hold of Jesus, to take him away, to get ready to end his life. And as these people are coming up on Jesus, it's saying that someone who basically was going to be on Jesus' side drew out a sword and swung and basically cut somebody's ear off. One of the people that were coming after Jesus, they cut his ear off. I'll put it to you this way, his heart was in the right place. It wasn't the right action, but his heart was in the right place. In this guy's mind, he was defending Jesus. Yeah, he did something crazy. He cut somebody's ear off. Yeah. but his heart was in the right place. He was trying to defend him. He didn't want to see him get hurt. But I love how Jesus says, no, put your sword away. Let's not do this. Let's not handle it this way. When I was reading this, getting ready for this sermon, this is what came to mind. You know how, and you've probably come across people that have done this. You've probably seen it on social media or whatever. But let's say people get into an argument. You got person A and person B. They get into an argument. They're arguing. And the argument goes too far, and folks start threatening each other. So somebody gets in there on the comment section, and they're, cussing somebody out, threatening them. Then somebody that's on the other person's side, they get on there, they're cussing each other out. They're just going back and forth. And the next thing you know, it's like, okay, let's meet up at such and such place. Let's fight this out. Let's have it out. And then they're like, oh, well, no, let's meet at this place over there. Because I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get me on your territory. No, you come onto my territory. So they argue it out, right? Person A and person B and all the people that's on one side or the other side, they're arguing. Then they're like, well, no, let's meet up here because it's neutral ground and we can see who really is the strongest. We're going to fight this out. And then somebody's going to get on there. They're going to be like, well, I'm going to bring my, they'll name some type of fancy gun they got or whatever. Well, let me go get my, AK-47, blah, 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 whatever. Let me go get my shotgun, right? And then somebody else going to jump in. Well, why you got to have a weapon? Why can't you fight with your fist? That's what's wrong with this generation. Y'all too scared to take a butt whooping, right? So then right? Y'all know how it is. So more and more people get involved. And then this is what happens right here. Someone, either person A or person B says, well, I'm going to go get my cousin from, and then they'll name a completely different state. I'm going to tell my cousin from Texas and from Alabama and from Georgia to come, right? So now they got all these people, friends and relatives and people that they grew up with and people that they knew back in kindergarten that's then moved way out of state. Now they got to get a hold of them. They ain't talked to them in years, but they going to contact them and tell them to come all the way, drive all the way down just to back them up in the fight. So now they got people from out of town, out of state. Everybody's arguing. Everybody's into it. And now it just turns into a numbers game, right? Now it's not even about person A and person B talking it out like adults, sitting down one-on-one, face-to-face, talking it out like adults. Being mature. It's not about that anymore. It's not about getting along and putting the past by. Oh, no. Let's go out of our way to get as many people involved in this as possible, because the more people we have involved, the more stronger and more powerful we feel. Even if we gotta drag innocent folks into it, even if we gotta drag people we ain't talked to in 11 years into it. So now it's just a big mess. And so now you got people who didn't even know each other 5 minutes ago. Now they're cussing each other out because one person is on person A's side and somebody else is on person B's side. So now they got to now hate everybody that stood up for the opposite person. And it's just a mess. We see that play out a lot. That very easily could happen here. You've got Judas and the people behind him. And then you've got Jesus and the disciples that are loyal to him. And somebody that's loyal to Jesus gets a sword out and gets ready to start swinging. And Jesus is just like, no, put it away. Jesus could have just stood there and let it play out. Jesus could have egged him on and cheered him on like, yeah, take him out. And instead he's like, no, let's not even do this. because Jesus knew he was going to have to go through what he was going to have to go through. He didn't try to make everybody be enemies with each other. That's not how he wanted to handle it. That right there is something, whoever this is for, that right there is something to think about, something to take into consideration in your situation. Question yourself, is it necessary to get everybody and their mama involved in the situation? Or is it just something you would do just to, puff yourself up or to make you feel stronger in the situation when you know it might not even be necessary? Just something to consider. Who are you involving in? Is it necessary for them to be involved in it? Are you going to make someone feel like less of a friend or less of a cousin or less of a this or that just because they didn't get involved and get in somebody's face over something silly, something that was probably your fault to begin with? Because you did somebody wrong or you led somebody on, whatever. Just something to consider. But moving on, verses 53 and 54. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the scripture be fulfilled, that thus it must be? So right here again, Jesus is just saying, listen, if I wanted to, and he wasn't saying this even to brag, he was just getting a point across. He was saying, if I wanted to, I could cry out to the Father and just have angels brought down from heaven to come and help me, to come rescue me, to come get me out of the situation. I could easily get help that is stronger than everybody standing in either one of these crowds. None of you guys could compete with the angelic beings of heaven. You just couldn't compete. I've got help that's on a whole nother level than you guys. But I'm choosing not to use them. So if I'm not going to use them, surely I'm not going to use you guys. That's not even what this is about. I am here on a mission. And that mission is to do the will of the Father. To do the will of him who sent me. And part of this is for me to be taken away or seized, right? Caesar the Opportunist. It's part of the deal for me to be seized and put on the cross. I've got a mission to fulfill. So he went about it in an awesome way. Moving on to the next chapter, chapter 27. Starting at the beginning, it says this. When the morning was come, all the chief priests and the elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. And when they had bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate the governor. Then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, repented himself and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. Let me just pause here and say this. However you feel like God is leading you to deal with this situation, let me say this. There could be different end results. The person who's being a Judas to you, they may never own up to their actions. They may never apologize. They may just move on and basically move on to their next victim or basically their next opportunity. They'll just seek another opportunity to betray someone else. They'll just find someone else to get close to and succor them and and in their mind, it's like, well, if I stop dealing with you and I befriend someone else and help someone else out, you'll get jealous and you'll try to get me to be your friend again and you'll open up to me again. And then when you open up to me out of your jealousy of the new person, then you'll basically be letting me back in to hurt you again. See what I'm saying? So if your Judas moves on to some other victim, don't try to drag them back in. Just say la vie, let them go. Just, don't try to beg them to be your friend again. Now, let me say this. Do you forgive them? Yeah. Even if they don't apologize, forgive them. But that doesn't mean you've got to let them run you over again. Right? You see the true colors. You take it for what it is. But I'm just saying there's a possibility they may never admit to their wrongdoings. They may never apologize. So be it. Not everybody's going to be a Christian about it. That's the reality of it. So there's that. So that may be one thing that'll happen, but here's something else that may happen. They may come up and apologize after all. Now, if they do, one or two things is either going on. Either one, they don't mean the apology. They're just giving you a fake apology because they think that's what you want to hear. And if you ever open up to them, they'll go back to using that as an opportunity. However, it could be that they really do mean it. And they really may give a sincere apology. They may ask for real forgiveness. They may ask for a fresh start. Hey, let's start this over. Let's be friends again. No matter what the result, though, it's important for you as a Christian to forgive. But once again, nothing wrong with keeping your guard up. Once again, nothing wrong with you not being as trusting and as open. Do you see where I'm going with this? Still go about it in a Christ-like manner. But let me say this. Time will tell. Time will reveal whether or not they meant the apology and they really want to be a real legit friend or not. Because number one, is if you do forgive them and you're like, okay, blah, 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 whatever. As time goes by, if you're not so quick to open up to them like they're used to, eventually they're going to say, okay, they're on to me, and then they're going to go ahead and move on finally. And then that's how you know they didn't mean it. Also, another thing is this, because if they really mean it and they really care, they're going to stick around. You see what I'm saying? They don't mind, earning your trust. They're not going to get butthurt because, you didn't just open up to them after a week. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So here's the other thing. If they did mean it, something is going to have to happen. And what's going to have to happen is the people that they were selling you out to, basically, to get some type of gain or advantage by, going back to them and saying this or that little connection they have, they're going to have to break it. So watch how they are with those people that were your enemies. Watch that. Watch the relationship they have with those people, because that relationship's going to have to change one way or the other. Either they're not going to have that relationship with them, or they're going to say, okay, we can be cool, but this thing that I did, where I was coming back to you saying this and that for money or attention or a spotlight or a fake friendship with y'all or whatever, we're going to have to cut it. We can't do that no more. Something in that relationship between the Judas and your enemies is going to have to change or stop altogether. And you'll see it. And this right here, what we see in Matthew 27, is exactly a great example. Because it says this, once again in verse 3, then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, repented. Repenting means to change your mind, to have a different attitude about what you just did. So when you sin or you do wrong by somebody and you repent, it's like saying in your mind, what I did was wrong, and now I'm going to turn away from what I was doing that was wrong. Kind of like when people say, wow, that person did a whole 180. In other words, they just went from going in one direction to the next. They went from being the bad guy to now trying to be the good guy, or genuinely trying to help the good guy for real. Just a whole 180, a whole change of mind, change of heart, basically. So Judas, when he, after the fact, he sold Jesus out, but when he saw how things were about to play out with Jesus and what they were about to do to him, he had that wake-up call and he repented. And it says this, continuing on after repenting himself, it says, and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, I have sinned. So he repented not only in himself, but he admitted it with his mouth. He said, I have sinned. In other words, what I did was wrong. What I did against Jesus was wrong. I sinned against him. It says this, in that I have betrayed the innocent blood. So the next thing he does is he admits that Jesus is innocent. He admits that nothing should even be done wrong to him. So he's not justifying his actions against Jesus, and he's also letting them know he's not justifying their acts against Jesus. In other words, he's letting them know, hey, you guys that have been the enemies of Jesus, He's innocent. You have nothing on him, really. It's all just a bunch of bull crap. It's an act. It's all a bunch of lies and false allegations and jealousy and envy and a misunderstanding, whatever. But this isn't right. Now look at this. It says, and they said, what is that to us? See thou to that. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. Unfortunately, we see that Judas, he hanged himself, he did himself in. But it would have been cool to see him stick around and try to go back and try to apologize to Jesus, or maybe even try to help Jesus out in some kind of way. But it would be cool to have seen him stick around and try to go about things the right way. But we see that not only did he repent, did he say that he had did Jesus wrong, not only did he say he was innocent, but he even tried to give that money, the 30 pieces of silver, back to Jesus' enemies and say, listen, I can't have this. Yeah, I sold him out. Y'all bought me out. I had my price, but I don't have a price anymore. Take this money back. I didn't spend none of it. I don't want it. This is blood money, basically. You guys take it back now. They didn't take it back because they were just like, listen, this 30 pieces of silver, this is nothing to us. This is chump change to us. This is just pocket change. This ain't nothing. We don't want it now. You're the one that wanted it so bad. You're the one that sold your so-called friend out for it. So, we don't want it either. But at least Judas actually did something. He said some things. He said he was wrong and all this and that, but he at least tried to also put some action behind it and show that he wanted to do the right thing. These are some signs right here that lets you know the genuineness of him wanting to do the right thing. These are the signs of things that your Judas may do, wanting to go and backtrack and try to make things right. So just some things to consider, but there will be signs of different things is my point. So with all that said, as I get ready to wrap this up, you may be thinking, well, what if this Judas what if they don't do the whole apology thing, and what if they don't try to do things the right way, and what if they just skedaddle and run off to someone else and run off to some other victim and some other opportunity? What do I do? Well, go to Romans. This is the last place I'll take you to. It's Romans chapter 12, and all it is verse 19, and it says this: Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Vengeance is God's. So don't try to go and get revenge. Don't try to get payback. Don't try to become a Judas yourself. It's not in your heart to be a Judas, so just don't even just don't even try it. You're just not an evil villain at heart. Just just let it go and give it over to God. Just pray on it. Give all the negative emotions you have about the situation and that person over to God, and let him deal with it. Vengeance is not yours, it's his. He will repay. Now, God will take care of it in due time. Not in your time, not how you want it, not when you want it, not where you want it to play out. Just let God, like when people say let go and let God deal with it. He has it. He knows what he's doing. In due time, God will deal with it the way he sees fit. He'll deal with the person, the people, the situation. And your God, our God, is a restorer. He wants to get back all the things that the cankerworms and the palmer worms ate up. He wants you to have back the things that the enemy stole. He wants to give you a full recovery and then some. He'll give you more back plus interest, or double fold, or sevenfold. Y'all know how it is when the preachers preach it. He's going to give you all your stuff back times 7. But you get what I'm saying. Y'all get what I'm saying. I'm just being funny now. But seriously, our God is a restorer. Whatever you lost, he has something better. He's got better in store for you. But your goal is to do what's best in God's eyes, to be the best Christian you can be. Why? Because listen, you never know who's watching. Because just as you've had a Judas keeping an eye on you, and just as you've had the haters, the enemies, or as I call them, the background people, as you've had the people in the background watching you and pretending they haven't been, but they have, they're just using the Judas to do most of the watching and listening. There may even be other people who bits of information of the story have leaked out to them some way or the other. And even though it may seem like they're not paying attention, they are. Point is, you never know who all knows stuff about you and who all is watching your actions. So keep in mind that you never know who all is watching or who all is listening, who all is reading the things you do and say. Especially nowadays with social media. People use social media to read what you say and see what you're thinking all the time. I mean, daggum is bad. It is wacky out there. But just hold on, hold tight, and know that God's got this. Now, if you're a vengeful person and you keep vengeance in your heart, you're basically just kind of tying God's hands up and keeping him from seeking vengeance. Point being, don't wish bad on anybody. Don't curse anybody. That's not the Christian thing to do. However, as others try to curse you, just remember that the word says that God will bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you. So don't be the one to do the cursing. Speak blessings even over your enemies. Keep that in mind. Thank you all for listening. I'll pray us out of here. Heavenly Father, I thank you for another time to minister another word. Lord, I've been excited about this message, and I just thank you for another opportunity to preach something. Lord, I would pray that the people that need to hear this would tune in to hear it, that they would have the ears to hear and the heart to receive it, that they would keep in mind they are Christians. They must handle things in a Christ-like way, no matter how much the heat gets turned up, no matter how much it seems like so many people are against them, no matter how much the lies and the false accusations start flying and the bad gossip and the rumors seem to swirl around them. They have a standard to live up to, and they are ambassadors of Christ. They must wear Christ. They must put on Christ and walk and live as Christ did, as close to doing that as we possibly can. Even though it's difficult in today's world, we must strive to live up to a standard. Yes, we mess up. Yes, we miss the mark. Yes, we fall short of your glory, God. But still, we must pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and keep trying again every day, knowing that you are a rewarder of those who diligently seek you. And we must seek you in prayer on how to deal with these situations. And we must let go of all the negativity, lay it down at the feet of your Son, Jesus, and know that when the time is right, you will deal with the enemy, with the adversary of our soul, and any person that opens themselves up to be used as a vessel for the enemy. Lord, you've got it all under control. Lord, we give you all the praise, the glory, and the honor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.